South Africa's retail sector shed tens of thousands of jobs between 2020 and 2025. Load shedding, interest rates at a 15-year high, compressed consumer spending, and the economic damage from the July 2021 civil unrest did not distinguish between small traders and established chains. Three businesses that millions of South Africans had walked into, shopped at, and trusted across multiple decades, Westpac Lifestyle, the Cross Trainer, and AutoZone, each entered financial distress within the same 12-month window. Their products were different. Their customers were different. Their histories were different. But the structural failures that brought each of them to that point share a pattern that recurs across South African retail, debt built on growth projections that a deteriorating economy made impossible to meet, cost structures that left no room to absorb external shocks, and macroeconomic conditions that compressed every margin at the same time. South Africa's economy grew at an average rate of less than 1% per year between 2012 and 2023. Consumer inflation peaked at just over 7% in 2022, the highest in 13 years. Load shedding at its worst cost the economy an estimated 1 billion rand per day in lost output. Retailers felt those numbers in foot traffic, in basket sizes, in credit availability, and in the landlord disputes that followed when rent payments ran out. The three companies in this autopsy did not fail in isolation. The business that became Westpac Lifestyle began in Krugersdorp West in 1996, when a father and son team opened a store called West Randpack, selling plasticware and packaging. The concept was straightforward: bulk goods, practical products, and an in-store experience designed to feel like an adventure, a wide variety of items at accessible prices under one roof. In 2008, the brand was formally rebranded as Westpac Lifestyle. The word Rand was dropped as the company began planning expansion beyond the West Rand, and the name Westpac was retained as the foundation for a national rollout. The structure of the group grew alongside the store footprint. In 2013, the company launched Westpac Lifestyle franchise, creating the vehicle that would later become central to its survival. That same year, Westpac Express was introduced as a smaller format retail concept. In 2017, the group added PetZone to its portfolio, a pet care retail offering covering food, accessories, health, and grooming products. By 2018, when Westpac celebrated its 10th anniversary as a nationally branded business, the group had 47 stores across its network. The trajectory looked like controlled growth. The problem was what happened in the 4 years that followed. Between 2018 and 2024, Westpac pursued what its own CEO, Jose da Silva, described as an accelerated growth path. New stores opened at pace. Each new store required capital to fit out, stock, and operate. The company was funding that expansion through cash flow generated by existing stores, and as new stores came online faster than they could reach profitability, the pressure on that cash flow compounded. By the time the board adopted a resolution to commence voluntary business rescue proceedings on the 9th of May 2024, filed with the Companies and Intellectual Property Commission on the 15th of May, the group had 52 corporate stores and a franchise network operating across South Africa, Lesotho, Eswatini, and Namibia, employing 924 people. The business rescue application was direct about what had gone wrong. The accelerated growth path had stretched cash flows too thin. The high capital cost of opening stores depleted reserves. The company had acquired the wrong product mix, leaving inventory on shelves that consumers were not buying, which locked up cash that the business needed for operations and debt repayment. Da Silva's affidavit also named the South African economy and load shedding as material contributors, stating that both had changed the buying habits of South Africans and caused turnover to decline, pushing the business into a loss. The director, Chris Da Silva, put it simply: they grew too fast, too quickly. The business rescue process attracted buyers. By early 2025, Westpac franchise had been acquired by a new group of individual investors. The brand emerged from business rescue in August 2025 under a fundamentally different model. The company now operates 66 franchisee-owned stores, with each individual franchisee capped at a maximum of 5 stores, a structural limit designed to prevent any single operator from overextending in the way the original corporate model had. New stores are planned in regions where the brand has limited presence. Approximately 70% of products remain locally sourced. Some stores still operating under the Westpac name are no longer formally affiliated with the restructured group following the ownership transition. The corporate structure that built Westpac to over 100 stores could not sustain itself. The franchise model it left behind is smaller, more distributed, and designed, specifically, to ensure that one store's failure cannot pull down the rest.
Just walking out of Cross Trainer, one of the best sports stores in the country. Over 40 outlets nationwide. Chakujana Bana and Grand. They get you the most exclusive stuff. Straight up just like that. All my new sneakers, exclusive stuff, I get them from here. Catch them on Twitter, man. It's Cross Trainer South Africa, yeah?
The Cross Trainer opened its first store in 1995. It was a family-run operation from the beginning, owned and operated by the Frame family through their investment vehicle, Frame Leisure Trading, which was formally incorporated in June 2002. The business was headquartered in Sandton, Johannesburg. Over nearly 3 decades, it grew into the largest privately owned sports lifestyle retail chain in South Africa, stocking Nike, Adidas, Puma, and other major international brands in a multi-brand retail environment. At its peak, the business operated stores across all 9 South African provinces, as well as outlets in Botswana and Namibia, and described itself as the first retailer in the country to offer sports athleisure wear as a dedicated category. The group also ran sub-brands including X-Kids and X-Trend, a private label range called XT built around street culture and basketball, and a distribution and logistics arm that served the broader group's supply chain. Frame Leisure Trading entered voluntary business rescue in August 2024. 3 months later, the business rescue practitioners concluded there was no reasonable prospect of recovery.
At this stage, 67 stores that's open. Some of them has been going through a bad patch with the landlords and things like that, and had the unfortunate situation that the doors were closed for a day or two.
Namhlanje kuzabantu bayafika kuyavalwa. Namhlanje bakutshela namhlanje ukuthi ishop iyavalwa. The next thing kusasa khani uzotshela ukuthi uya-retrench kusasa seyishop ivaliwe.
To this conversation now, sports retailer Cross Trainer, the financial woes of this company seem to be worsening. Workers have reportedly looted stores over non-payment as the company went into business rescue. The company's cash flow problems stem from the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's been struggling since then.
Imali zethu asizitholi, and azange adiscuss nathi uboss wethu ukuthi imali zethu uzosinikeza piece by piece.
Are you aware of this?
They've been paid 70% of their pay. Some of the workers that was laid off before, severance packages weren't paid. But at this stage, 70% of the current employment staff has been paid.
All right. What about the remaining 30%?
Liquidation proceedings followed. The company did not survive. Mark Frame, the owner of Frame Leisure Trading, traced the origin of the collapse to a specific sequence of events. The first was COVID-19. Lockdown restrictions in 2020 and 2021 cut foot traffic to zero for extended periods and left the company unable to meet its financial obligations. The second was the July 2021 civil unrest.
Hi, Unjani. Unjani, why are you taking these things?
Across the Frame Leisure Trading network, 50 stores were directly affected by the looting and destruction. 6 were shut down permanently as a result. The company received compensation from Sasria, the state-backed special risk insurer that covers losses from civil commotion, but the compensation was described by management as insufficient to cover the actual losses sustained. The gap between what was lost and what was recovered was never closed. The third structural break was a change in creditor payment terms. Before the civil unrest, key suppliers were extending 90-day payment terms to the business. After 2021, those terms were tightened, first to 60 days, then in some cases to 30. That shift fundamentally changed the cash flow dynamics of the business. The Cross Trainers model depended on selling product within a reasonable window before payment to the supplier fell due. When that window shrank, the business had to find cash faster than its sales cycle allowed. It could not. On top of these compounding pressures, the competitive landscape was shifting in a way that directly threatened the multi-brand retail model. Nike, Adidas, and Puma, the brands on which the Cross Trainers identity was built, each expanded their own direct-to-consumer store footprints across South Africa during the same period. When a customer could walk into a Nike or Adidas store in the same shopping center and buy that brand in a curated, brand-owned environment, the multi-brand retailer's core proposition, access to multiple brands in one place, lost some of its reason to exist. Puma, at one point during the business rescue period, instructed the cross-trainer to stop selling its products entirely, a directive that directly removed inventory from shelves at a time when the business could not afford further revenue compression. Several landlords cancelled lease agreements during the rescue process due to unpaid rent. At the point of entering business rescue in August 2024, 67 stores remained in the network. By late October, only 19 were still active. More than 200 jobs were lost. The official online store was shut down. A consortium submitted a reported 80 million rand offer during the rescue process, proposing to acquire the brand and restock the remaining stores. The business rescue practitioners assessed the offer against the company's financial position and liabilities and concluded it did not constitute a reasonable prospect of recovery. The practitioners filed for liquidation. The cross-trainer's failure is a compound event. No single cause was sufficient to close a business that had traded for nearly 3 decades. It was the accumulation, the pandemic, the looting, the insufficient insurance payout, the shortened creditor terms, the brand competition, the landlord disputes, arriving in sequence without enough capital resilience in the business to absorb any one of them, let alone all of them together. AutoZone was founded in 1999 as part of JSE-listed Supergroup. It operated as the largest privately owned automotive aftermarket parts retailer in South Africa, stocking a broad range of spare parts, accessories, and automotive products for both retail and trade customers. In 2010, the business was separated from Supergroup and acquired by a consortium led by IMB Corvest, together with Zico Capital and senior management, in a leveraged buyout valued at 435 million rand. That transaction gave AutoZone independence as a standalone business, but it also placed debt on the company's balance sheet as the price of that independence. In January 2015, Johannesburg-based private equity firm Ethos Private Equity announced that it had acquired a controlling stake in AutoZone through its Ethos Fund 6, a 7.9 billion rand fund. The deal was funded by debt provided by Barclays Africa Group, which subsequently became Absa. At the time of that transaction, AutoZone operated 151 retail and wholesale branches and 37 franchised outlets across South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Eswatini, and Botswana. Ethos stated at the time that it intended to grow the business geographically and accelerate the store rollout. The growth that Ethos projected did not materialize at the pace or scale the debt structure required. AutoZone CEO Dion de Graaf, in his business rescue affidavit filed in July 2024, confirmed that the company underwent a private equity transaction in 2014 funded by what he described as a responsible level of debt, but that Auto's performance did not meet expectations, primarily due to the increasingly challenging South African economy. What that statement describes, in practice, is a leveraged buyout in which the debt was sized to a growth projection, and the South African economy spent the following decade contracting instead of expanding. Every year that growth fell short of the projection, the gap between what the business generated and what the debt required grew wider. The COVID-19 pandemic compressed revenue. The July 2021 civil unrest caused further direct losses. By mid-2024, with Absa unwilling to extend further credit, the company had no mechanism to continue servicing its obligations without external intervention. AutoZone voluntarily entered business rescue on the 1st of July 2024. The business rescue practitioners appointed were Piers Marsden and Jenna Osborne of Matheson and Associates. The network at that point spanned over 200 stores, serving customers across 4 countries. That footprint was precisely what made AutoZone attractive to a buyer. Mete Investments Limited, a JSE-listed automotive group, finalized the acquisition of AutoZone in December 2024 for 278.5 million rand. As part of the transaction, Mete settled 200 million rand of Auto's debt owed to Absa and paid out trade creditors. A further 75 million rand was injected directly into the business to rebuild stock levels that had been depleted during the rescue period. AutoZone now operates as a wholly owned subsidiary of Mete. The strategic rationale is clear. Mete manufactures and distributes automotive products, and Auto's 200-plus store network gives it a direct retail channel for those products across Southern Africa. The business is currently focused on restocking corporate stores, rebuilding its online retail platform, and reclaiming market position in South Africa, Namibia, Eswatini, and Botswana. AutoZone is the clearest structural argument in this autopsy about the long-term cost of leveraged buyouts in a stagnant economy. The underlying business, the brand, the network, the customer base, the market position was sound enough that a listed company paid 278.5 million rand for it in the middle of a business rescue. The asset was never the problem. The financial architecture placed over the top of that asset in 2015 was sized to an economy that South Africa never became. 3 companies, 3 different products, 3 different ownership structures, 3 different chains of events. Westpac expanded its corporate store footprint beyond its working capital base, stocked the wrong products, and ran out of cash. The cross-trainer was financially thinned by a pandemic, structurally damaged by civil unrest, pushed out of the market by suppliers competing directly with it, and stripped of lease agreements by landlords who could not wait. AutoZone carried private equity debt for 10 years through an economy that grew too slowly to service it, until its lender declined to extend further credit and the company had nowhere left to go. 2 of the 3 are trading under restructured ownership. 1 is gone. In each case, the businesses that survived did so because a buyer concluded that the underlying asset, the brand recognition, the customer loyalty, the store network, still carried value. The structures built around those assets, in each case, did not. Westpac's corporate model is replaced by a capped franchise network. Auto's private equity structure is replaced by strategic corporate ownership with a clear distribution rationale. The cross-trainer has no replacement structure, because no buyer concluded the value was sufficient to justify one. South African retail does not fail quietly. It fails in full view, in the shopping centers where the stores once were, in the WhatsApp groups asking whether the local branch is still open, in the job losses that follow workers home. The causes are really one thing. They are the intersection of a slow economy, an aggressive expansion decision, a debt structure built on optimism, and external shocks that compress every margin at the same time. That intersection is what this autopsy maps. This is the autopsy.